Gaza and always gives us a very moving account of that work. So I'd like you to give a big round of applause, please, for Dr. Shamila.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Brothers and sisters in humanity, boys and girls, esteemed guests, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May the peace and blessings of God Almighty be upon you all. My name's Dr. Shamila Islam Zulfikar. And I was last in Gaza. I'm a medical doctor, and I was last in Gaza during the previous reign of terror the Israeli Zionist government unleashed on the Palestinians. I may be repeating something. I got here quite late, so if I repeat some of what the last speaker said, you know, I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. We can't say it enough. We're all gathered here today because many of us are grieved and horrified by the barbaric cruelty and brutality affecting Gaza currently, and it's in a dire state. Many of us feel helpless as to what we can do, apart from watch the slaughter of innocent men, women and children based on their faith and ethnicity. It is imperative to understand the urgency of what's going on in Palestine right now, and specifically Gaza, especially in light of this ground incursion that started a few days ago and has caused the Palestinian death toll to shoot up now around the 700 mark, and it rises as we stand here and protest, with thousands injured by the heavy bombardment and illegal weapons that Israel is using against innocent civilians, whilst the international community leave these people to die by their indifference. You know, during the last aggression, the doctors noticed that there were new things, new injuries, new kind of war toys that were being used, and they couldn't figure out what they were. And this time, we're having the same thing again. I'm in touch with medics on the ground inside that are saying that there are injuries coming in, and they can't even begin to understand how these people are getting killed. I ask you, what nation would tolerate their people being deprived of food, water, electricity, their children being detained, tortured or killed, their homes flattened, their elderly or vulnerable being brutally treated at numerous checkpoints all around through their towns and villages? Nothing about this systematic abuse and war crimes being committed here makes sense, because Israel's entire strategy and inflammatory actions make no sense. They have this itch every year where they have to kill off a few hundred civilians, injure and maim a few thousand, test out their new toys gifted to them from their best friend America, and seek more international sympathy whilst they throw out their dummies and scream the victim. This talk about Hamas did this and Hamas did that needs to be clarified. Hamas was the democratically elected government which these occupiers decided to criminalize by locking up any senior figures and assassinating the rest. Since the recent aggression started, yes, Hamas have fired rockets. But imagine if someone came and sat in any one of your houses, just came and told you to get out, let alone paperwork, deeds, anything like that. How would you feel? Imagine they killed your neighbours and your children and your family, suffocated your lifelines by besieging you for years. I don't know about you, but I wouldn't be taking it lying down. These rockets that they fire are like homemade fireworks, and compared to the havoc, death and destruction the Israeli army and weapons of mass destruction are pounding the Gaza Strip with for the last few days, this is not a war. This is genocide. The Palestinians have no choice but to resist for their survival and for their people. As a humanitarian, we're opposed to all forms of violence, but I won't pretend to be naive and say that the Palestinians have no right to legitimately resist the injustices being done to them, because resistance means existence for these people. That's all they've known for 60 years. This problem didn't just start last week or last year or even the last decade. This oppression by the Zionist Israeli government has been going on for over 60 years, and be under no illusion, this isn't about Hamas, Fatah or any other Palestinian faction. This is about the brutal, illegal occupation of Palestine by the apartheid Zionist state. You don't have to understand the politics here. You don't even have to be a Muslim. You just have to be human and understand the dynamics. You know, I just want to point out that there's lots of young children here, and many of you have young children here. You know, were any of you woken up by the thunder and lightning last week? You know, the constant thunder, the constant lightning? Were your children frightened? Can you even begin to imagine how the sky lights up every few minutes from the aerial bombardment from all sides in Gaza? Can you imagine how the children cling to their mothers when their houses shake? Can you imagine how mothers are making their children sleep in different areas of the house so that if they're struck by the Air Force, one or two of their children might survive? Can you imagine how mothers are sleeping with their hijabs on so that if they're bombed, when they're discovered, they're still covered? And they're sleeping with their names written on their bodies so that people can identify who they are. Can you imagine the 18 graves dug up for one family? And now the death toll having gone up, 28 members of one family have been killed. Can you imagine what's going through the mind of the father picking up the remains of his child's dead body and collecting them in a carrier bag? His life and soul scattered in front of him. You don't need to imagine, because that is the reality of what's going on right now. Do we care?
Yes, we care.
Will we do more than just pray for them? Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
So before I wrap up, I was going to read a poem. Anybody that was here at last week's protest will have heard it. I don't think we've got time for that right now, but I want to just say a few words about what we can do as communities in the West. In a personal capacity, we all feel helpless by what's going on and what we can see. But it's because the problem is so vast and multifaceted. And I know I felt that way at one point. But let me tell you, my brothers and sisters, each and every one of us can help in our own way. This is one of the biggest tests for the people of Palestine. But I tell you, this is not just a test for the oppressed. As a person of faith, I believe that we will all get asked what we did to help those people when they were being oppressed. By attending and supporting events like this, you're supporting the oppressed. By speaking up and protesting for them, for the voiceless, you're highlighting their plight and telling everybody their stories of tragedy. By writing to your MP and to other human rights groups, you're helping them, because even if freedom isn't decreed for the Gazans right now, it will be someday, God willing. And at that point, all the evidence and voices documenting the abuses will not ever save the aggressors. If we do not stand up as individuals for the truth, for what is right, believe me, we will fall for anything. And today it's the Syrians and the Palestinians and the Iraqis and the Afghanis and the people of Central African Republic. Tomorrow it could be us. Will the good deeds of today save us for what's going to happen in the future? Of course it will. Make it a goal for yourself personally that you will do at least more than what you've been doing already when you leave from here today. My 3-point rule is, number 1, raise awareness. Tell your families, tell your communities, tell them what's going on and tell them in your own networks. Number 2, actively fundraise any way you can. There are people collecting here today. The young and the old can do plenty. Sponsored walks, climb, bake sales, events like this, practical help. And number 3, last but not least, pray for those suffering, or at least think about them. Proper heartfelt prayer for those that are suffering around the world, because really feel for them as if they're your own family, because they are our family. I thank you for listening to me, and I hope the suffering and killing ends soon, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shamila.